Welcome back to the channel. Our brand new 2022 Acura RDX is all painted and ready to go back together. It might not be quite as new as it was. I think we put about a mile on it driving around the shop, so now it has 827 miles on it. So we have the rest of our parts in, the few that we were waiting for. Our seat belts and our airbag module are all repaired and back from My Airbags. So I think we're ready to throw it all together. So let's get it done. So we'll start with our seat belts first so we can get the interior all back together. They package their seat belts way better than I do when I send it to them. I did have to cut out the part where I opened the box with the sharp razor blade because I don't want you guys to think I've changed. So we'll figure out which one is our front. And it looks like it might be this one. And we'll install that one first because it's the easiest. Yep, that looks like it. We'll install the retractor first. Start the bottom bolt and tighten both up. And plug it in. We can feed our belt up our B-pillar here. And bolt the top of it into our adjuster. We'll feed it through our B-pillar trim. Slide the tabs in the top end. Get that clip to line up and snap it in there. Get to make sure that adjuster has tabs on it. Want to line it up with the release clip on the trim panel. We'll pull our gasket out of there and put it back on top like it's supposed to be. Do the same thing with the front door gasket. Now we can slip our lower B-pillar trim in here. This one goes over the gasket. Smash it on there with our door panel installation tool. And then we can attach the belt to our seat. And put our little cover back in here. And put our seat back. And we got our sill plate. Lost interest in putting the seat back, I guess. Smash our sill plate in there. You can't see much in there, but we're going to put our bolt in the top, our bolt in the bottom, and plug it in. First we need our quarter trim spacer tool. Slip our retractor back there. And bolt it in. Pull the little lock off the belt and let it retract. They put those on there so that the belt is all the way out. It's a lot easier than trying to get the belt out once it retracts itself. You have to have it at just the right position or it'll lock up. So they put that on there to make it a little easier to install. And to give me something to throw across the shop. Then we can put our bolt up in the top. And tighten it down to manufacturer's specs. Strength of 1,000 angry mechanics. Pull our little spacer block out of there. Pull our gasket out. See if we can line up all of our tabs. And smash our trim panel back up there. Put the lower trim into the upper trim. And put our door gasket back on with the belt molding installation tool. Put our screws back behind our handle and then put the cover back on. And we can put our little cover for the trap door for our manual fuel door release. Then we can install our sill plate at the bottom of our rear door. Also covers up the bottom of the seat. Flip it into our trim panel. And we can bolt in the bottom of our seat belt.
and head over to the other side and put the seatbelt in this side. Put our little spacer block back there. Drop our retractor back in here. Hopefully not literally, because the entrance to Narnia is back behind that quarter trim. I don't want to lose it in there. Pull our little free fork off of our seatbelt and toss that on the floor. We'll retract our seatbelt and run it through the upper trim panel. Now we can bolt our seatbelt into our pillar. That's not going anywhere. Our spacer out of there. Clip our trim panel back in. This build must be almost done since Mr. Spotty decided to show up. Waiting for his paycheck. Our gasket's back in here. Put our screws back behind our release handles for our seat and pop the cover back on. Take our apprentice with. We can fold up the seat, bolt in the bottom of our seat belt. Now we're ready to install the bottom of our seat. Fish our seat belts through the seat. I'm sure the clean freaks are losing their mind because I've installed a seat with dirt on it. That's okay. Plug the seat in and flip the front of it down. And clip the front down on this side. Now we can fold our seats down to check and make sure our handles work. And so that we can get our bolt in there that holds the bottom of a Honda rear seat. Every Honda has one. Only one. Sneak it in there and tighten it down. And we'll put the little trap door back on. Flip it in. Throw our cover in there. Flip it in the front. And fold it down. Now we can install our rear cargo liner. Dirty, of course. You didn't really think I was going to clean it, did you? Not my job. Our little cargo hook back down and fold our seats up. And now we're onto the front door. We'll install our belt molding. Had to get a brand new one. We didn't get one with our car. Don't know what happened to the old one. Sometimes the clips aren't very friendly on these and they break. So maybe they broke it. Now I think we're going to put the handle on because I'm tired of using my finger to open the door. And not before we close the door one more time. So we'll put the gasket in for the front of the handle and for the rear of the handle. Stuff our wire in there. Latch the front. Slide it forward and lock it in. We can slide our cap in the back of it. We can put our bolt in our cap and tighten it down. And we didn't get a plug, but luckily I knew a guy that had some extra ones in a bucket somewhere. Drop our mirror in here. Start the nuts on the back. And tighten them all down. Manufacturer specs, of course. Plug in our mirror. And plug in our door handle before we forget. Stick our water barrier back up there. We'll clip in our wiring harness and plug in our door lock actuator. We put our trim around the top of the window. There's one plug for the blind spot monitor. The little light that comes on when there's a car in the blind spot. And then we just clip it in and pull the door gasket out if it's tucked in behind it. Okay, I've had enough of doors for now, so we're going to go put something else together. We're going to put our grill together. We got our brand new chrome surround molding. There was a guy in the first video that thought he had an extra one from one of the RDXs he had already done. Turns out the 22s have a different chrome bezel around them. They had a different front bumper, and he knew that. They also have different grills, different headlights, and different wheel liners. So our old grill surround didn't work, and neither did these little vents on the side. It still goes together the same way. Everything clips in and then just has a bunch of screws. We'll buzz all of our screws in there. And we'll leave the emblem off because we're going to have to aim our radar. And the emblem does happen to be the same. It also costs the same amount of money as the older ones. Now we'll plug in our headlight. Set it down in the fender and clip it in. And then we can bolt it all in. This is our bonus headlight. Wasn't sure I was getting it. Glad I got it. Because I ended up having to refinance my house to buy the brand new one for the passenger side. Because it only fits 22 and 23. There weren't any used ones available. So I had to buy a brand new one from Honda. And it didn't even come with a little bumper bracket on the bottom. So we had to buy that separately and bolt it on. We'll clip our headlight into our fender and bolt it in. Put our little bumper bracket on the end of it, flip it into the fender, and put our bolt in our headlight. And make sure our gap is right. Now we're going to install our tube in our overflow bottle. Took a little while to get. Brand new from Honda. Didn't know it's just a piece of rubber tubing. It wasn't too expensive. Put a little elbow through the cap and slide the tube over it. It'll hold everything together. That allows it to pick up the antifreeze from the bottom of the tank. We're going to install our bumper clip. Had a spare one of those from Scott's RDX Emporium. We'll clip our little baffles into our bumper support. Hey, who's this guy cleaning over here? See, I clean what matters. These you can see through the grill, so you clean them off because you won't be able to get to them once the grill's on there. Everything else can stay dirty. We'll install our washer nozzles. Plug the hose into the back of them. Clip the one side in. And snap it up in there. Do the same thing on the other side. Now we can put our hood liner in. Got some tabs in the back that slide in. And of course, you know it's dirty on the inside. Nobody's going to see it. Put all our push pins in there. And now we'll open up some more plastic bags and throw them on the ground. And drop this little grate in here. And a little snorkel for the top of our air box. Clip that onto our air box. Put our little push pins, hold it all together. And install our rubber baby buggy bumper on our fender. Now we'll clip our grill into our bumper. I don't know why, I just can't put one thing together at a time. We'll run our screws in our grill, hold it into the bumper, and there's a bunch of push pins on the bottom we'll clip in there. Then we'll put the lower bumper valance on. I have to kind of figure out how this all goes together because I didn't take it apart. Luckily I got a bag with a lot of screws. One screw in each end. And now we'll put our grill in the bottom of it. Line up all the tabs before we start clipping it in. inevitably one of them will give us the middle finger and slip out of there and bend over, and we'll have to take it all back apart to clip it back in, because that's just how it works every time. We'll clip in our little vent on the side. I think it's in there. Then we got a brand new one for this side. Snap it in. And we got some chrome moldings for the bottom. Snap those in. Got a brand new molding for this side. Some scratches on the old one. Pull it out of its bag. Toss that in the ground. Line up all the tabs, and clip them in. We'll put our little covers on here. This is where the fog lights would go if it had fog lights. And we'll put some screws in it. We'll also put the screws in the chrome molding. And we'll put our duct in for our brakes. Some more screws on this. And one push pin at the top. Same thing on the other side. Put our fog light closeout panel in there. And we got a new brake vent on this side. Screw that in. And now we're ready to throw our wiring harness in here. Flip it all in. Plug in all of our parking sensors. One more parking sensor. And one more. We're going to put our little rubber strip on the bottom that catches on every parking bumper. Lets you know that you've hit it and tears off. I assume that's what it's there for. It's got some tabs that clip in there. And then some push pins go through certain ones. We'll put all of our push pins in there. Now we're ready to throw the bumper on the car. Be a lot easier to do if I had friends, but I don't. Mr. Spotty is no help. He's just sitting there watching me. Maybe he's getting a head start on aiming the radar. I think we got one side clipped in. We'll see if we get the other side clipped in without the first side falling off. Looks like we're good. Clip in the sides. And we'll put our push pins across the top of the grill in. And close the hood and see if it fits. Look at that. I got lucky. The Honda was nice enough to put one screw in the back of the bumper for us. So we'll screw that in there. Make sure the bumper's in where it belongs before we tighten it up. Then we're going to put our door moldings on our passenger door. Pull the backing of the two-sided tape off and toss it on the ground for the sea turtles. Line up all the tabs and stick it on there. Make sure it's on there. Okay, one more molding. Got to put all the bling on. Same way. Pull the backing off the two-sided tape and toss it on the ground. Then line up the tabs. Oh, one of our gaskets is not where it belongs. Flip it on there and make sure it's stuck. Okay, back to the door. We'll plug in our door panel. And we'll slide our door handle assembly into our door panel and clip it in. They took it apart a little bit differently than I do. Definitely goes back together easier the way they took it apart. I think it comes apart easier the way I take it apart. You just take the cables out. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go with next time. Put the screws behind our handle in. And then put the cover over them. And there's one more screw hidden under the armrest, so we'll put that in there. Make sure our door lock works.
So we've encountered a little bit of a complication with this build, a little setback, a little snafu, if you will. And it appears that a lot of people are under the misconception that FedEx is in fact a package delivery service. And while it's true, occasionally, if you wait long enough, they will deliver your package, sometimes even to the right address. However, FedEx's primary business is product and package durability testing. Now how it works is you package up your perfectly good item, you do your best job to make sure that it's going to be safe and secure inside the packaging, and then send it to FedEx. And they do their best to make sure that you packaged it properly and that it will not be destroyed in shipping. And it goes through rigorous testing to make sure that both the product and your packaging is up to standards. Well, it turns out that my product was not up to standards, either that or my packaging. So we have a broken ear on our airbag module. Now my airbags was able to clear out our codes and reset our module, so the insides of our module are just fine. It's just I have no way to mount it, and if it's missing an ear on this side, it just kind of flops around in there. And there is a sensor inside here. Now I could mount it and nobody would ever know until the next accident. So I would have trouble sleeping at night. So we're gonna have to come up with a solution to fix this. Now a new module from the dealer cost me about 200 bucks, and then I need to pay somebody to reprogram it. So you're looking at about $400 to get a new module, program it, and be able to put it in the car. I don't want to pay all that because I have a perfectly good module. So I came up with a better solution. So we know the inside is good and all we need is a case. So I called my buddy over at a salvage yard I use a lot and asked him if he had a module. Now they sell these modules pretty cheap, and the ones that are from flood cars, they sell really cheap because, well, they're useless. There's nothing good in electronics. I don't even know if this one ever got wet. However, all I need is a case. So we're gonna gut both of these, put the good guts in our good case, and we will have a good product for the cost of nothing. So all we have to do is pull out these 5 screws. They're tamper-proof stars. They have 5 points. So if you don't have a set of these, they're available in my Amazon store in case your product didn't meet the rigorous testing standards of FedEx and you need to repair yours. So this is our good guts, and that's the wrong size. That's it. Let's pull our other one apart. There we go. Crisis averted. Let's go put it in the car.
So we'll slip it in here underneath the console. We'll plug it in. Just put the plugs in and push them in, and they'll lock themselves in. Just make sure they click. They're not coming out of there. Once it's plugged in, we'll set it up on its little perch and start bolting it down. Looks like we got a rave going on down here. Once it's all bolted in, we can throw the side cover in for our center console. We didn't take the hush panel off, so we need to tuck it up underneath there. There's one tab up in the front that we slide in. We'll clip in the top underneath the hush panel, and the rest of the clips are easy to get to. We can bolt in our driver's side. Click. Now we can throw our side cover on this side. Slide the tab in up in the front. And this one's real easy to clip in since we already had our knee bolster out of our way. And now we can put the knee bolster in. Plug in all of our plugs. And we'll clip in the vent on the other side. Snap it in there. And snap in this side. We'll put our screws in there. And clip our vent in. Make sure we get it over the duct on the other end. And put our side cover back on. Now we need to remove our wheel lock. So we have our universal wheel lock removal key. Hammer it on there. We didn't get a key. I tried. Acura Little Rock didn't want to give it to me. The last guy didn't use the proper torque specs on that. We'll unbolt the rest of our lug nuts. We need the tire out of our way so we can finish putting everything together in here. And while we're here, we might as well pull the rest of the wheel locks off with our universal key. That one was torqued down properly. Must be a rough neighborhood down in Little Rock. You have to worry about people stealing their stock wheels. So we're just going to get a set of regular lug nuts and throw those on there, and all mechanics that work on this car in the future will love me. And we had a bad parking sensor. It was more of a maraca than a parking sensor, so we got a new one. And it came painted, so we just clip it in there. Then we can put our bumper back up. We can put the rest of our push pins in for our wheel liner. Hold it to the bumper cover. Carpeted, of course. There's a couple screws in the bottom of our bumper cover. And a few push pins. Put the rest of our wheel liner in. And put a couple push pins in it. Now there's a cowl extension piece that we had taken off so we could paint the edge of the fender. We're going to put that back in. Slides under the back of the fender. And there's one push pin that holds it into the cowl screen. I believe I've built up a nice reserve of patience, so we're going to put this little gasket, I guess, in front of the door. It seals the gap between the fender and the door when the door is closed, and it goes on the other side of the hinges between the edge of the door and the hinges, and there's not a whole lot of room in there, and there's push pins right behind all the hinges. So I loosened up the bolts on the door hinges and let the door drop down just a little bit, well, about maybe 1/4 of an inch, whatever the length of those bolts is. That gives you a little extra room to slide that piece in there, and then you just got to struggle. And once it's in there, we can tighten up our bolts. And they are self-aligning, so it'll bring the door back right where it was and the hinges. But that little extra room, you need it in order to get that in there. I've tried doing it without loosening these, and it took even longer, and I was never successful. I loosened up the bolts, and it took a little while, but it got in there. There we go. Now we're going to take off our free advertising, because I'm kind of not happy with Acura of Little Rock. Since they didn't want to give me any extra stuff that they had for the car, they wanted me to buy it. Not cool, guys. We just use a razor blade, actually a brand new one. You don't want to use an old one, because if the blade is dented at all, it will scratch the glass. So use a nice fresh blade, scrape off the letters, and then a little wax and grease remover will take off any residue. Now we can install our lower fender molding in the back. This clips in, and there's one push pin in the bottom. We had to wait to get our wheel liner. I had to teach my Acura guy that they were different. They changed in 22. They became carpeted. And we all know how much I love carpeted wheel liners. So the first one I got was plastic like it should have been, but it didn't fit. So we learned together that they were different, and he got me one I needed. Now we're going to clip in all of our little rectangular retainers. These hold in our closeout panel. They're specific to this vehicle. Luckily I had a few extras from the last one. When those are installed, we can take out our brand new closeout panel and we'll have something to clip into. There's just some little tabs on the bottom of it. Snap right in. Just line it up and push it on. Our radar unit is all aimed, calibrated, so now we can install our front grille emblem. The $700 one. Now these are the same as the older RDXs. They didn't change. Just the grille that they clip into did. Line up all the tabs. There's 4 plastic clips that hold it in, and then there's 4 tabs. You want to make sure it's not going to come off. And trust me, you don't want it falling off because you don't want to pay to replace it. You got to get rid of the rest of the branding from Acura of Little Rock. Let's use the magic eraser to pull this vinyl off of here. Those are also available on my Amazon store if your car was branded by the dealer and you want to get rid of it. This was some cheap vinyl. It just kind of melted. Left us with a lot more sticky stuff than we usually get. Luckily, a little wax and grease remover will take that sticky stuff right off. Maybe if you guys had given me my extra key that only fits this car, of course the fob could be reprogrammed, or the wheel lock key, or the owner's manual, I might have left your name on there. But probably not. But there would have been a better chance.
So sometimes the painting gnome gets a little overzealous with his paint. Paint stuff he's not supposed to. Actually, it's just overspray. The tape peeled off right here and the clear got underneath here and got on the molding, little on the door there. So we're gonna clean it off real quick. I'll show you how. So we're just gonna take some detailing clay and this final inspection. That's what's in here. You can use water on here, but this works a little better. No, we make little animals. No. You do that when you're bored. That's why detailing cars takes so long. Detailers are sculpting things. Could probably get away with steel wool because this is a chrome molding, but it's only chrome plated plastic, so I don't want to risk it. This doesn't damage anything. You can use it right on the paint, as we'll use it up here. You can kind of hear it as you're dragging it. It should be nice and quiet. If it makes a little scraping noise, it's picking up all the contaminants, the overspray. This is the detailing gnome's job, but I can do this much before I lose interest. He can do the rest. Pretty quiet. I think we got it all. Nope, not quite. Still see a little bit in there. Probably would help if I had a clean towel, but oh well. Our overspray's gone. That's what matters.
So we've been driving the RDX around for a little bit, making sure everything's okay, and we finally hit 1,000 miles. It's time for an oil change. It's first one, actually. So we'll pull this little skid plate down. Really a skid plate, it's like a pop can. That's just the heat shield. Spin our oil filter off of here. And make a mess. And clean up our mess. And now we'll install our Fram filter, trigger the internet. Probably the only reason I actually changed the oil in this thing is just so I could annoy the experts that hate Fram filters for some reason. I know. You guys already gave me your speeches about why you don't like them. That's why I use them. Write it down to manufacturer specs, plus 18 turns. Speaking of Jiffy Lube, it's nice to know when you have a 1,000-mile car that Jiffy Lube hasn't been there before you, so it should be a pretty easy oil change. No over-tightened oil filters or drain plugs that are welded in or stripped out. Just nice and easy the way it should be. We'll pull our oil plug out, drain all of our oil, and when it's all done, we'll put our oil plug back in. Then tighten it down to 6,000 foot-pounds. And hope that Jiffy Lube gets to work on it next. Click. Now we can throw our pop can back up here. There's a big tab in the front and one little tab in the back. So slide it in there. It'll stay up there just long enough for you to almost get a screw in and then it'll fall out. Put our little screws in there. And just turn them a quarter turn to lock them in. When you buy a fancy Acura, they use all the same screws. When you buy a Honda CR-V, you got two different sizes. Guess that's what the extra money gets you. You know by about the fourth oil change, these things never make it back on there. There's just a bunch of them littering the floor of the pit at Jiffy Lube. Now we can dump our oil back in. And spill it all over the engine. Free armor all. Put our cap back on. Push our dipstick all the way down in there and wipe it down and spread out our armor all evenly. Look at me cleaning. And now we need to reset our oil change light. We'll just use the little trackpad down in the center. And that's how you operate the radio. Takes a little getting used to, but once you learn how to use it, you don't even have to look at the screen. Pretty easy. Just go to the maintenance, oil life, engine oil, reset. Yep, I'm sure. Okay, we're at 100%. It's ready to go. So if you want to know why I don't like carpeted wheel liners, here you go. This is what was left in the rear wheel liners of an 800-mile car after it was detailed. And you know this thing has never seen off-roading. It's probably never seen anything but a parking lot. Closest it came to off-road was the lot at the auction. And now it's detailed and clean, and our wheel liners are clean. It's ready to sell. Now, price-wise, it was nowhere near a total loss. I would have to assume they totaled it just because of the parts delays. Now, the front bumper cover was the biggest delay. I don't know how long it would have taken to get it from Acura. I actually got a reconditioned one. That is one that was slightly damaged and then repaired. It had a broken tab on it, and they put the tab back on, and that's how I got it. It came repaired, and you just sand it down and paint it like you would a new bumper. Never know the difference, except that I told you. And for everyone that was worried about me not cleaning everything before I put it together, it's all detailed, so the engine part is nice and clean. You know, there were some people losing their minds because I put some dirty parts on there. But why should I clean them if they're going to get cleaned again anyway? And everything underneath, you're never going to see, you're never going to know. For everyone wondering how long it took, I had 12 hours of labor invested in this thing. 20 hours of labor to go pick it up and get it home, but told you it was going to take me longer to get it than it did to fix it. Well, it looks like this build is finally done, but there's only one way to be absolutely sure. So it's time to play everyone's favorite game. You guessed it, what's in my console? We have an empty haters tears bottle. I'm starting to get worried. I'm thinking maybe these haters are starting to like me. We can't have that. Maybe I'll have to buy another Mustang. That'll do it. What else is in here? Extra. We don't have any extra bolts. As a matter of fact, we don't have any bolts. Not because I did the job right. Don't worry. It's because they just didn't give us enough. I actually had to go find some from Scott's Honda Emporium. That's it. There's nothing else in here. It looks like those vultures at Acura of Little Rock have gotten everything else out of here. My presents were limited to what was in the back when I started this build. So, it looks like the build really is done. And if you're looking for a nice little RDX for your driveway, you can head on over to my website and you can pick this one up. At the time that this video is out, it should be up on my website. Can't guarantee it's still there, but it is now available. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next build.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh**. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.